Hey there, Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. And if you are new here, my name is Hannah. I am a Western Practical Astrologer, and I'm so excited today to talk about the archetype of Capricorn. It's still Capricorn season. I think we have about a week left. So happy birthday to all of you solar Capricorns out there. And I hope you are doing good today. I hope you're having a lovely Sunday. I hope your day's going well so far. Right, so let's jump in. And also just to say, Secrets of the Soul, happy birthday. It's your birthday today. Happy birthday to you. I hope you have a lovely day. Okay, so Capricorn season occurs from around the 22nd of December until the 20th of January. Of course, Capricorn season marks the winter solstice in the Northern Hemisphere when the sun is at its lowest in the sky. Hi, Alexander. How are you? And I also want to let you know about astrology products that I have available. You can find all of these products over at hannahselsewhere.com. And of course, there's also merch even available there. And I do just want to say as well, thank you so much to my patrons over at Patreon. I really appreciate you so much. Thank you for all of your support. And if you are interested in these extra goodies, then you can become a patron. It's a great way to support the channel. It's a great way to support what I'm doing on here. So yeah, it would be great to see you there. All right, so let's go over some of the main components of Capricorn, okay? And let's begin by looking to the symbol of Capricorn. Of course, the symbol is the sea goat. Now, another popular symbol would be the mountain goat, okay? But I'm just going to focus on the sea goat. And of course, the sea goat is more of a mythological creature. But even just to look at the glyph itself, so there's actually a few different ways that the glyph is drawn. And these different ways can be found over at, so there's a Capricorn mythology video that I have created, and you can find it over there. Even just look it up. You know, there's a few different ways, but if we just were to focus on this one, all three of them actually anyway. All three of the symbols represent a goat with a fish tail. So the top left-hand side of the symbol represents the horns, okay, the goat's horns. And then that right-hand side of the symbol, that represents the tail. So if you see that little loop effect, do keep in mind that the circle in the image, it represents spirit. But then the horns, they represent the sure-footedness of Capricorn, you know, that sure-footed ascent. And it's then the tail that possesses a holding back quality. Therefore, what this symbol represents is an individual's determination to really liberate their spirit from any ties that hold it back in life, such as, for example, you know, rigid ways of thinking. Even think of it through a lens of the fact that, you know, Capricorn, there are setbacks and limitations. So there's something here again about this determination when it comes to this sign. It's like, right, okay, this is a setback, but this is what I'm going to do about it. This is the way to figure this out. And what I further want to mention is the fish side of Capricorn. That is quite significant when we consider how the fish live in water. So, Capricorn is actually a highly spiritual sign. It's very spiritual, very emotional as well. It's just that the emotions that a Capricorn will show face to face, you need to kind of, there needs to be trust there, okay? Things need to be built in a way, and there needs to be an opportunity to kind of get closer, and I think that that does come with time. And the other thing about it, of course, is Capricorn can tend to repress, right? There can be the whole thing of repressing one's emotions, which we will talk about more with the moon being in Capricorn in a bit. But still, there is an emotional and spiritual side to this sign. And so just keep that in mind when you look to the fish. But what I'm going to even say with this is I recommend watching the Capricorn mythology video for more information, and also the Capricorn symbol video for more information about this glyph. Just there's more in-depth information there. So yeah, those videos are up. But what I want to do is I want to further say with this that it's through ambition, loyalty, hard work, and commitment that we are able to really reach our goals and conquer our aims. And I think as well, what this suggests is, being called to let go of resistance and to identify just how resourceful we are, thinking about where Capricorn shows up within our charts. So this symbol signifies an individual's capacity to build slowly and purposefully as well towards a goal that will gain them some sort of recognition or prestige. Okay, it looks really at long-term success. But then on a more spiritual level, this is also about building recognition and prestige from within. Okay, so no matter how long or hard or slow things appear, it's really about trying to go within and to be our own source, of recognition in that way, and showing a great deal of dedication. And what I also want to mention, even just to explore the mythology a little, just a tiny bit. Of course, I said, I recommend watching that video, but in short terms, looking to the Capricorn mythology, there was a sea goat called Precious, or Precus, however you pronounce it. But the whole story of this is, I think, related to the inevitable. It's related to the things that we cannot actually control in life. So the thing about Precious is that his children, they would swim up to the shore. And when they did that and they bathed in the sun and everything, they would turn into regular goats. But them turning into regular goats meant that they did not have the ability to think or speak anymore. Okay. In the water, they did have the ability to think and speak. But knowing this, Precious pretty much tried to save his children. So he tried to warn them. He actually turned back time. He turned back time. He spoke with Cronus and was like, no, I want to turn back time to save my children. But the lesson in this is the fact that no matter how many times time was turned back, Precious could not save his children. Okay. And I feel as if what this highlights is karma, what this highlights is fate, and also recognizing that we cannot control the actions of others. There's a great deal of maturity in that. And I think it's also being, circumstances. Some things we can control in life, but other things we can't. We all have our own sort of limitations and boundaries. And that's okay, right? It's okay to recognize that there are certain limitations in life. It's not necessarily a bad thing. But I think, yeah, this ego in a way really looks to acceptance, accepting the things that we can and cannot control. Okay, so let's now explore the elements of Capricorn. So, of course, Capricorn is an earth sign. So, earth signs are known for being highly resourceful. I really think about Capricorn especially as making use out of what they already have. Capricorn is the kind of sign who can earn more from having less, or they can make less go a long, long way. And earth signs as well, they are known for being quite productive and efficient, using their time wisely, for example. And so, especially with Capricorn energy, with Capricorn, they can be, this is a super productive and efficient sign. This is the sign that is able to organize their day pretty well. This is the sign that kind of has its eye on a certain goal that they want to achieve. And it's like, okay, these are the steps that I need to take. There's a building process to Capricorn. Okay. I kind of think of, just building a house, and it starts with one brick at a time. You lay the brick, you lay that foundation. That's very Capricorn energy. You lay the foundation and it needs to be strong. Okay. It's very much about having a strong and steady foundation. And the other thing about earth signs that I want to mention is earth signs are also highly sensual. It's a very sensual element. And Capricorns are quite sensual. It's just that, it takes time to kind of see this side to Capricorn. But yeah, earth signs, sensual. And then the other thing is Capricorn, the modality of Capricorn is cardinal. So it's a cardinal sign. Cardinal signs are leaders, okay? Cardinal signs take action. So it's Capricorn who can really act as this leader who seeks to build. Capricorns are often known as bosses, entrepreneurs, being the authority, being the professional, being the expert. But what's required throughout this process is time, effort, consistency, and not giving up at the first hurdle. And there are going to be hurdles in life. This is the thing. Capricorn energy says, I see that you want to become such and such. This could be, for example, a lawyer, a doctor. But Capricorn says, yes, I see that you want to be those things, but these are the steps you need to take. This is the history that you need to learn about such matters. These are the structures that you need to learn about, and the foundations as well. And you're not going to get there overnight. This is Capricorn energy. You are not going to get to where you need to be overnight. And you cannot rush the process. You can't rush it. And if you try to rush it, you'll most likely learn pretty quickly that was a bad idea. This is what I noticed with heavy Saturn ruled people. It's quite interesting. And these are just my own sort of observations, but karma seems to get them. And karma comes around pretty quick, I think, for Saturn ruled people, because they identify it. They think, or they see, oh, okay, that maybe wasn't the best choice or the best decision there or action. And then there's an ability to kind of, okay, that's not where you're supposed to go, and this is what you're actually supposed to do here. Do not cut corners, basically, says Capricorn. Cutting corners will only just bring more stuff to have to fix or sort out. And of course, this isn't to say that, we can't go back and, revisit the foundations if we have, maybe made a mistake or an error or whatever. We can do that. We can. But Capricorn says, take responsibility. Take responsibility of your actions and choices. Hold yourself accountable as well. I think that's a big Capricorn lesson. You hold yourself accountable. And you're able to actually reflect then a little bit and think, what role did I play within a situation that maybe didn't go so well? What did I do within it? So yeah, there is this remarkable ability within Capricorn to be able to reflect and think about, how can I do better for the next time? And what did I learn from my failures? What did I learn from my mistakes there? And then you can use such matters to then move forward with more wisdom, wisdom that you could also possibly pass on to other people. And the thing about this too is Capricorn is like a fine wine, right? The longer you give the Capricorn energy in your chart, the nicer it might taste, if you will, later on. Okay. Yeah, Capricorn energy is something that you need to give time, and things get better with age. Things get better with time as well, but that also depends upon one's ability to be able to kind of think, oh, right, okay, so this is what I've learned, etc., and then moving on, so on and so forth. So the house that Capricorn rules within astrology is the 10th house, which we're going to get into in a moment. But just to look at Saturn, okay? So the ruling planet of Capricorn, of course, is Saturn. Saturn also rules Aquarius. But focusing here on Saturn, firstly, I actually want to explore the glyph here. So if you look at this glyph of Saturn, the glyph looks like a sickle. So the sickle was used for harvesting or reaping. And it is actually the Grim Reaper, okay, so thinking about the depiction of death, who would hold this device in his hand, okay, suggesting that the symbol of Saturn represents time. It represents, well, even death, right? Cronus, aka Saturn, was the god of time. Okay, so we kind of think about Saturn as being the lord or the god of karma and time. Saturn symbolizes an individual's time on Earth, and its influence can often feel heavy. Okay, it can feel, so if you look at Saturn in your chart, wherever you have Saturn, that area can feel limiting and heavy and burdensome. But it can also signify the importance of order, structure, organization, and arrangement. It's Saturn that represents the many lessons an individual can learn as they grow with age, time, and maturity. Okay, so much about maturity. After all, how would any of us know what we know if not for time? Now, the symbol of Saturn can also represent the personality, if you will, being restricted or confined. Okay, there's a sense of confinement with Saturn, with Capricorn. So it suggests that any restraints or limits that an individual faces, they are located then within the individual themselves. Okay, meaning, of course, like I said, Saturn represents karma. It can show an individual where they could change something, they could do with changing something within their life in order for them to become wiser, smarter, more responsible. Like I have been suggesting here, it's very much about learning from your failures, from your mistakes, right? Learning lessons. This is what Saturn is here to really teach us. And it's Saturn that shows us that it starts with us, realistically speaking. With death, though, comes new life. And with the end of the year comes the beginning of a new one. It's also that, because I feel like with Saturn energy, it's also perhaps being able to see what is the type of person you're going to be once you learn from your mistakes or when you learn significant lessons in your life. Think about the person you could very well become, right? This sort of newer version of yourself. And of course, Saturn is also about self-mastery, right? It's about self-mastery due to its qualities of persistence and perseverance and patience and hard work and commitment. Saturn is about discipline, okay? Meaning the placement of Saturn can show you where you master a particular area of your life. And also how you can do it, right? How you go about doing such things. And this is about building structure. This is about establishing order within our lives. This is about creating a plan, a thorough plan that is done so carefully. This is also about setting healthy boundaries. This is about taking calculated risks and conserving materials, okay? Conserving. And this is also about making decisions based on the long term, okay? And like I said, the sickle was used to harvest and reap. And Saturn, this is the thing about Saturn. Saturn's great because we also reap rewards. Yes, who doesn't love that, right? We also reap rewards for our efforts, for our hard work. But you need to give it time. You need to give it time. And of course, Saturn is also going to show up as how we deal with restrictions. You know, if there is a certain limitation or a setback, how do you deal with that? Do you just go, oh, I'm done, like I'm throwing in the towel, I'm done with this, or can you maybe take some time, okay, just to be a bit more mature, right? Rather than reacting, reacting in the moment, just maturely go, okay, that did not work, or I'm having an issue within my relationship right now, or this thing did not go to plan. But this is the new approach. This is a different way to go about this. So we can face challenges through Saturn. And of course, we can take responsibility for our actions. And we can also look to how we address any insecurities or feelings of inadequacy, because that's even the thing about Capricorn energy. Oh my goodness, in a more difficult view, Capricorn energy can be so hard on itself. Capricorn in our charts can be super negative and gloomy and depressive and feeling like, oh, I'm not good enough. And, oh, I've been giving my all into this and nothing seems to be moving. And there can be a lot of stagnation, right? There can be. But I feel as if this is also about how we address these matters. And we can do so, hopefully. So, with that being said, hello, everyone joining. Hi, hello. I just want to say hello to everyone before I move on. Hi, Real Talk Tina. Hi, Jocelyn. Hi, Jocelyn. Hi. Yes, happy birthday for the 18th, Jocelyn. Hi, Francisco. Yes, Capricorns are known for aging backwards like Benjamin Button. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Jocelyn. That's really lovely of you. Thank you. And hi, Kaniki. Hi. Hi, Daryl. Hi, Manda. Oh, so live readings. I'm going to be going live on Friday. I'll post about it soon. But welcome to you, Manda. Okay, so body parts. Let's look at body parts before we move on to the 10th house, just to let you know that the body parts Capricorn rules is are the knees, the bones, the skin, and the skeletal structure. I find the bones and the skeletal structure just so fascinating. You know, when we think about how Saturn is very much about structure, and it's Capricorn that shows up here as this ruling this major area. I mean, yeah, when I look at my body and I'm thinking about it, I'm like, wow, it's really fascinating. Okay, so let's now move on to the 10th house. Let's explore. Okay. So these are the areas that the 10th house is comprised of. So in the 10th house, we really want to look to our accomplishments. This is what shows up within the 10th house, basically, our accomplishments and our achievements. But such matters do not just come instantly. These are things that we've really worked hard at. We've worked over a long period of time toward. Of course, the 10th house is also about the long term. So this is about long-term goals. This isn't just short goals. You know, Mars energy could point more toward like your average everyday goals, or maybe a competition that you join, and maybe it's even related to your fitness goals, for example. But Capricorn energy, the 10th house, it's more about the long haul. This is more about even 30 years down the line. Okay. I would even suggest, this is my suggestion, with the 10th house, it acts as another Saturn return. Kind of. So whatever you have in the 10th house, and this is just my own kind of view on this, but whatever you have in the 10th house, I think it also looks at how such matters will materialize more, or maybe things will ease a bit better for you coming into your 30s and after your first Saturn return. I mean, when I kind of reflect on it, then again, I could, because I have a Gemini midheaven, 10 degrees in the 10th house. So I've got Gemini in the 10th. And then I have Saturn in the 6th in Aquarius, making the exact same degree. So I could be speaking about on this more so from a personal perspective, right? Because I have just experienced my Saturn return. And with Saturn then making the same degree to my midheaven, I would say that my midheaven was also strongly activated by my Saturn return. So like I said, that could be more of a personal thing. Maybe just reflect on yourself, you know, kind of think about if you have went through your first Saturn return, that is, and just kind of see how things have shaped and changed for you. Still, this is about long term. And this is also about reputation. This is about status as well. It's interesting to me because what I've sort of noticed with Capricorn energy is you can get Capricorns that are very much about status, right? Very much about they want the beautiful house and car and family, and they're really working hard toward their wealth and being really seen as wealthy and seen as super important, wearing just the most expensive watches and wearing these suits or these dresses, you know, whatever it is. They just want to be seen as like the authority, okay? And they want all of their respect, and they want everybody to like cater to them. And they're going to be the ones who are in control of whatever it is. But then you get other Capricorns, I think, who like I kind of, and I've talked about this before, I kind of see Capricorn as the secret millionaire. Okay. I see certain Capricorns as perhaps having, loads of money, being really well off, but they're not going to tell you or show you or make it obvious. And they're also not going to care so much about, how they're seen necessarily. But then again, you could also get Capricorns who just, it really isn't about the material side of things. It's more about, no, I want this area of expertise to really speak for itself. Okay. And so basically, this is to say that, status could show up. Status could show up in different ways. And it's even our attitudes towards status. It is kind of interesting to me because we sort of live in this type of society, don't we, where one of the first things you ask someone when you meet them is, oh, so what do you do, right? What do you do for work? And whether we are conscious of it or not, we're sort of judging each other on it. So for example, if I was to meet someone who's like, I'm an astrologer, I've had some people, think, okay, look at me like I have 5 heads. But then, other people being quite fascinated, right? And like, oh, really? I don't think I've met an astrologer before. But yeah, we can be really judged basically on our role. We can be judged on our position, right? And the other thing about this is the 10th house can look toward our career path. Now, with that being said, just to be realistic about this, which is very Capricorn of me, I mean, I'm very Capricorn dominant. Saturn is very prominent in my chart, but to be realistic in this, not everybody has a career, nor does everybody want a career. And that's okay, right? So, this 10th house area, of course, it can indicate our career path, right? But it can also indicate our very attitudes, right? Our attitudes toward career and our attitudes as well towards status, right? Our attitudes toward our position or our role within society, right? And maybe our attitudes toward the government or toward our members of authority, toward the law, this type of stuff. I think, yeah, so this is very much 10th house energy, but still, 10th house can also look at our purpose. And purpose doesn't just have to be career, right? Our purpose, for example, I'll give some examples. So let's say, someone becomes a mother, right? And they're like, oh my goodness, this is my purpose. You could even have, for example, cancer in the 10th or a cancer midheaven or something like that. Of course, you always have to look at the whole chart. But yeah, and this is actually interesting because I have an example. My mother, she was born with a Cancer midheaven, along with the Sun, Mercury, and Uranus all in Cancer in the 10th house. And my mother, before she had all of us, she did work within a government related job. Okay, so 10th house government. But then with the Uranus energy, unexpected changes happened. And then my mother became a stay at home mother. And she raised all of us. And maybe you could say that that was part of her purpose, right? That was an unexpected change. It was part of her purpose, part of her life's mission. It could be suggested, right? The 10th house can also look at our life's mission. But another sort of example of this could be, you could have, for example, Aquarius in the 10th house or Pisces perhaps, but what your purpose is that, you feel more drawn toward helping people, right? Toward humanitarian causes. It's not so much about, getting out there and working hard and working up the corporate ladder and getting this well-paid job and being seen as a somebody. It's more about, no, I want to get out into my community. I want to help. I want to kind of serve in a way. And even, for example, another one, let's say you have Jupiter in the 10th house, right? And what you feel like your purpose is actually to travel, right? It's to travel, to document your trips. You can even see this with many influencers online, right? And they're getting to travel. I mean, I'm partly jealous, okay? The fact that they're getting sponsored to travel all around the world. I'm like, can we switch? Can we switch? But yeah, you get my point, right? You get my point. And so the 10th house, essentially, it can look to our purpose and our career path and our reputation, what we're known for, right? What we really become known for. And I feel like the 10th house also slightly looks at legacy in this way. I also see the 8th house and the 12th house pointing toward legacy, but there's just something about what we become known for, right? And uh, this, I think, is more so shown over a longer period of time. Especially, if you've been in a particular role, you've worked within a particular position over many, many years, and it's like, you're that person. I remember you, right? And essentially, as well, the 10th house looks at our future selves, the future you, right? The 10th house, this is why I think it also acts as another Saturn return. This is why I'm saying this, because I feel as if the 10th house doesn't really show until much later on in your life, right? It doesn't really show it. You think about, your career path, you're not gonna be in that career when you're 5 years old. And well, you could, to be fair, actually you could be a child star, right? Yeah, you could. Just kind of, the wheels are turning right now. But do you know what? That actually is an interesting point. That's an interesting point there, because get this, right? What if an individual has moon in the 10th? Maybe this could suggest that they started to work from a very young age, right? They were maybe like a child star. We think about all of these celebrities today coming out, and there are major issues with the laws and the regulations, especially ones that happened back then, and just the labor and the hard work that they had to do from a very young age, and all of the mental health issues that followed from such things. But yeah, maybe with moon in the 10th, or even significant placements in the 10th, this, it could also suggest working from a young age. So there's also that. And the other thing, even on that note, is of course Capricorn energy is often seen as having a lot of responsibility from a young age. That's the other thing about it. Capricorn can be burdened with responsibility. And I kind of think of certain children that are made to work, or they're made to do things that are more adult-like. So yeah, I think there is a big part of it where the 10th house looks to our future selves, but perhaps just depending on what you have in the 10th house and how it relates to the other houses, I think it could also indicate that 10th house could be shown maybe a lot earlier on in your life. And maybe this is also where certain transits and progressions and things like that have to be taken into consideration. But the 10th house is also a house of dedication. How dedicated are you? And then, like I said earlier, life's mission, our life's work as well. What I kind of visualize is someone like, for example, Linda Goodman, right? I can't remember what Linda Goodman has. I think Linda Goodman was born with Jupiter in Capricorn, I believe. I could be wrong, but the whole point I'm trying to get to is, if you think about someone like Linda Goodman, who was a remarkable, incredible astrologer who also wrote astrology books, right? So she wrote sun signs, she wrote love signs, and these books really innovated astrology. I think she was in Aries, her sun was in Aries, her rising was in Aries as well. And then I think she did have that Jupiter energy in Capricorn in the 10th. And then she had a Libra moon. I think that's her. Those were her placements. But if you consider how Jupiter then, if it is in the 10th, that it's tied to publications, and if you think about legacy again, tied to Capricorn and tied to the 10th house, and you think about the long term tied to the 10th house and how the 10th house also looks at our life's work, just think about the books, the many books that she published and that she wrote, and how those books are pretty much her life's work, right? And they live through us, right? Her books will continue through us, because if people continue to obviously purchase her books or read her books, whatever have you, that way her work lives on through us. And the 10th house can also look to relationships with members of authority. So this can be your boss, your manager, the police, the law. 10th house can also be a pretty lawful house, right? I think about the government as well, your relationship with the government, or what your attitudes are toward the government, perhaps. And as well, the interesting thing about the 4th and the 10th houses is that they can point toward the relationship that we had with our parental figures. And things can alternate between, the mother and the father in this way, between the 4th and the 10th house, or between the more active parent versus the hidden parent as well. But yeah, we can also find here things to do with how we were parented or our relationships with our parents whenever we were younger. And then lastly, what I have there is success. Of course, the 10th house looks at success and how we are successful, how we seek to be successful, and what our attitudes are towards success itself. Let's see. Hello, everyone. Welcome. You're chatting away in the chat. Okay, good. Hi, Kina. Hi, welcome. Okay, brilliant. So let's now look to a few other areas. If you just give me a moment. So as you can see here, these are a few interesting points to make. So the day of the week that Saturn rules is Saturday. Saturday, of course, can often be a day of leisure for many, especially if you work the typical sort of 9 to 5. Then again, is 9 to 5 really typical anymore? Is it? I don't know. If you work Monday to Friday in that kind of environment, then yeah, the Saturdays can be seen as more of a day of leisure, but also as a day of duty. I kind of think about all of the other tasks that we as adults have to do outside of work, and maybe many people, because they work that kind of Monday to Friday job, then Saturday is a day where it's like, oh my gosh, these are all these other things that I got to do. Now, let's explore the ruling planet of Capricorn. And so when Saturn essentially is in Capricorn, it's in its domicile, its home in Capricorn. And with that being said, I want to talk about Saturn in Capricorn individuals. So if we consider how Saturn is about maturity, if you have Saturn in Capricorn, you mature by learning lessons to do with discipline, responsibility, commitment, and ambition. And we also kind of think about how, like I said, Saturn energy can be related to the father or to parental figures, right? To a parental figure. Growing up, you might have felt insecure about the relationship that you had with your father or with a particular parental figure. It could have been that this individual was cold or strict or demanding. So there was actually a lot of pressure to work hard and to take on greater responsibility. So this sort of, it aligns in a way with what I was saying previously about how Capricorn can also show up as us having much responsibility from a young age. But then again, this could have been a member of authority placing expectations on you. Okay, so this could have been a teacher or a manager. And so as a result, there is this disciplinarian voice in your head that's running 24/7. And you might have overcompensated by being a workaholic. But it is likely that you can feel inadequate about living up to other people's expectations. And you might be afraid of being rejected for stepping down. But through such hardships and setbacks, what you realize is how capable you are of being your own authority and your own parental figure at that too. You discover that you have the power to confront limiting views that tell you that you're not good enough. Therefore, as you approach your 30s, so as you go through your first Saturn return, which if you have Saturn in Capricorn, you went through your Saturn return there. It could have been your first, could have been your second, but you went through a Saturn return there a few years ago. But yes, as you approach your 30s, you mature into an accountable adult, okay? A responsible adult. You're able to sensibly face your fears regarding the likes of ambition and success and how you're seen, even potential fears to do with providing. And this is important because, like I said earlier, Capricorn energy can also point toward certain insecurities that we have. There can be a lack of confidence when it comes to Saturnian energy, but this is also where the hard work comes in. And the thing that I just want to say with this or about this is with your father, okay, or with a parental figure, whilst yes, there could have been these pressures to work hard and there's something to work through within yourself about, okay, I'm going to confront any limiting views that I have that tell me I'm not good enough. It's still those sort of influences from the father that was actually quite supportive. If you think about it, perhaps, many of you could have actually really felt like, okay, my father is just trying to discipline me and teach me about responsibility. And so there's a great deal of there are many lessons in that. And so, yeah, you could grow to become an adult who is accomplished and pretty grounded. And you can also experience greater persistence and dedication as well. So that's Saturn in Capricorn. But then when we look to the detriment, so the moon is in detriment in Capricorn. Okay, because it's opposite the sign that it traditionally rules. And of course, the moon rules Cancer within astrology. And so with this one, I think with the moon, the moon is more of this nurturing, receptive, comforting energy. So in this way, it could be suggested that who was quite a big authority within your life growing up was more the mother, okay? Or it's that your parents really nurtured your ability to show dedication, okay? To be respectful, for example, and to work hard, to keep your head down, okay? So, yeah, these qualities could have been nurtured. Now, the tricky thing with Moon in Capricorn is Moon in Capricorn individuals can often reject help from other people, perhaps without realizing. There can be this likelihood of sort of pushing people out or having these walls up and being guarded. And there can also be this likelihood of I can deal with any difficult emotions or heavy emotions. I can deal with them on my own. And there can also be these struggles then in actually sharing how one feels. Now, what I'm saying is not necessarily a super bad or negative thing. I think where there can be difficulty in this is if or when Moon and Capricorn people repress their emotions, okay, where things are so repressed and so stuffed down, and then it kind of gets to a point where it's too much, okay? They break down, or the pressure, there's just too much pressure and they feel like they just can't take it anymore, or where there's just so much weight on their shoulders and there's so much responsibility that it's just too difficult to carry. And so this is why it's important to kind of lighten the load a little bit for Mars and Capricorn individuals. And I also think it's important then to tap into more spiritual practices as well. If you have Moon in Capricorn, like I was suggesting earlier, Capricorn is also a highly spiritual sign. But I feel as if with Moon being in Capricorn, this is where we're noticing more of the walls, right? The walls, the blockages to do with emotions and feelings, etc. So yeah, a spiritual practice could be really helpful. But what I would also say with this is Moon and Capricorn people are great in a crisis. They're great in an emergency situation. They can be really very level-headed, right? Level-headed, rational. Like, what's the rational thing to do in an emotional situation, for example? And they can be great at providing or sort of taking control within a situation, especially if people are becoming really emotional. And there's also the ability to support through practical means, through practical measures, which amazing. Yeah. These are the types of people who, if, they really love you or care about you, they're going to show you through their actions, through what they do. And they're also going to show a great deal of commitment as well, I would say. Okay, so let's move on to the exaltation here. So Mars is exalted in Capricorn. And by exalted, this means that the energy is fully expressed. So Mars, of course, traditionally rules Aries and Scorpio. So with Mars in Capricorn, my view on this, and I have this placement, so I may speak a little bit from experience as well. But my view on this is there can be great control when it comes to goals, achieving goals, when it comes to being active, when it comes to asserting oneself. And if we think about how Mars looks at anger, people who have Mars in Capricorn can be quite good at controlling their anger a bit. Okay, so rather than, for example, lashing out or becoming easily irritated or easily frustrated by people, there's more of an ability to kind of, hold back a bit here, try not explode, or, try to sort of keep things pretty level here, because these are the consequences. Mars and Capricorn natives can be quite good at kind of thinking, these are the consequences of my anger, or this would be the possible consequence of me lashing out or saying something, for instance. Of course, this isn't to say that Mars and Capricorn people do not showcase their anger outwardly. I think that what often happens for people with this placement is there's a build. Okay. It is interesting because, of course, with Mars being exalted, it's like this, what I'm about to say, isn't actually the most beneficial thing. But anyway, so things can build, right? And over time, the person who has Mars and Capricorn could get to a point where it's like, I've had enough. I have had enough. And there can be the lashing out and the frustrations and being really quite like angry in this very obvious physical way where their body's just like shaking. Okay. Mars and Capricorn natives can really showcase their anger in a strong way. But again, like I said, I think a lot of it is to do with what's being kept back, and things just build over time. Though another thing I want to mention with this is, which I love about this placement, discipline. Okay. Mars and Capricorn people, I actually personally think that Mars and Capricorn is the most disciplined out of all the Mars signs. Okay. And maybe I'm just being biased, right? Maybe. But I do think that this really is the Mars placement that's like, okay, this is what I need to do every day for the next year, for the next 3 years. Okay, I'm going to do it. And it's all about the little steps as you sort of climb toward your own mountain of success. And there's a great deal of consistency, and there's a great deal of perseverance and being persistent, to really be persistent. And that there's a feeling of longevity, right? I kind of think I think of Mars and Capricorn people being the ones who are doing the long distance running, for example. Even think about how Mars looks at our energy levels and our physical activities, stuff like this. So Mars and Capricorn is the one who is running for long periods of time, or they are lifting heavy, right? Heavy weights, for instance. I know for me, I love to lift weights. I love it. The feeling that I get from lifting weights, okay, sure, it's not the most enjoyable at the time, but when is it your endorphins? There's all these chemical releases after. I'm like, I am feeling great. I just love the feeling after, right? Maybe not necessarily the feeling of my muscles being sore, like right now, they're quite sore. But the point being here, I feel as if there's something about the heaviness, like a heaviness that Capricorn can achieve, that they've got this. Okay. Maybe this is a challenging situation, for instance, but they are still willing to step up. Mars and Capricorn is like, okay, this is the obstacle that I got to get over. Right. This is what I'm going to do to get over it. This is the strategy. This is the plan right now. I just feel as if Mars and Capricorn is more willing to kind of attack whatever setback, whatever limitation it is. And they're like, nope, I'm not giving up on myself. I'm not giving up on this path. I'm not giving up on this goal. I'm going to keep going and going and going. Though the last thing I just want to say, because we do need to move on, but the last thing I want to say with this is there can be a bit of an issue or a challenge for Mars and Capricorn when it comes to pivoting, to pivot. Because you could keep like, right, no, I'm going. But it's like, maybe try something a little bit different here, right? And pivot. To be able to recognize when something has truly, truly, truly run its course and it's time to maybe set out on a different path, but still toward your chosen goal. It's just being able to change things about. Okay, so lastly, let's look at Jupiter. So Jupiter is in its fall in Capricorn. And this means that the energy is diminished. So the energy of Jupiter is diminished. And Jupiter, of course, rules both Sagittarius and Pisces. So you can this one I feel as if it pretty much explains itself, but Jupiter is this planet of expansion, isn't it? It's a planet of growth and freedom and exploration and wanting to do all the things and explore all the places and spreading your wings and flying, this type of stuff. But Capricorn is so much about responsibility and commitment and duty. And no, this is your purpose. And these are the steps that you need to take right now. Okay. This is how you need to focus right now. And it's trying not to get caught up too much in, this possibility. This can actually be quite grounding if you think about it. I feel like Jupiter and Capricorn, it can help the Jupiter energy from flying out away too much, but then again, this could also be where you go too overboard, right? You go overboard with the Capricorn qualities. Think about how Jupiter expands whatever it touches. I actually kind of think that so wherever Jupiter is in your chart, whatever sign it's in, it's almost like that sign's on steroids, or for example, I have a Virgo rising, but I also have Jupiter in Virgo conjunct my rising, and my Virgo qualities, yes, too much sometimes. I'm telling you, too much. I'm not going to explain that right now, but you get the point. Jupiter in Capricorn then could show up as being very rigid. Okay, that's the other thing. Very rigid, or like super negative. Always just looking to the negative, and it's like Jupiter's like, that's not what we're supposed to be doing. We're not supposed to be looking at the negative. But Jupiter and Capricorn goes, no, I'm going to. And also very limiting and just narrow, like very, very narrow-minded, okay? And so there can be some potential weaknesses in this way. These can be some potential weaknesses, but we think about how Jupiter looks at our blessings and our gifts, right? How we even share. You could very well feel blessed to do with planning. So something about your planning, something about maturity, okay? Blessings related to organization, or even opportunities linked to success and your hard work. And whenever you sort of do follow Jupiter, if you will, for example, if you commit to a certain plan, if you have Jupiter in Capricorn, opportunities just boom, boom, boom. I kind of think of when you follow your Jupiter placement, what happens is doors just open. It's like, oh, I'm going through here. Oh, this is happening as well. Oh, there's another opportunity over here. But you need to kind of just follow the path of Jupiter, with caution, of course, especially if you have Jupiter in Capricorn, and then also your self-exploration. Of course, Jupiter looks at exploration involves knowing what your achievements are, and also your purpose. And you find meaning and inspiration in accomplishment. But keep in mind that, your accomplishments, I feel, they're going to be linked in with something related to sponsorship or business or possibly politics or working within the public sector. So yeah, these things could be a part of your future if you have Jupiter in Capricorn. Okay. Just read through the comments a moment. Manda, you said your cat Mars friend lifts weights and is very disciplined. Doesn't have a temper at all. You've never seen her get upset, and if you did, you'd be super scared because you can see that being intense. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I have Mars and Capricorn too, and I keep a lot of my anger back. I'm not really going to show people that I'm angry. I think as well, it's all. I feel like a part of it too is knowing what kind of environment you're in as well. Um, I don't like the thought, for example, I don't like the thought of, for example, getting into an argument with someone in public. If I'm out and about and, maybe someone starts something with me in my car or whatever, I hate the thought of like getting into some sort of argument and people looking, and it could be just really, really embarrassing. And I've kind of watched myself do this, and I'll be so calm. Even in car situations, I'm like, I'm calm. Even if people are getting really, really annoyed at me and stuff, I'm like, yep, just taking my time here. Anyway, I don't mean to talk so much about myself, but it's interesting. Jocelyn, you also have a Virgo rising. Cool. You've got a Capricorn as well. CPB. People took things seriously. Oh my gosh. And yes, Kina, you said you have Mars is in Capricorn right now, 7th degree. Yes, it is. It's in Capricorn right now. It is. That's true. Um, Emotional walls, indeed, indeed. Okay. Right. Let's now look to these decans. Thank you so much for being here, by the way, everyone. I really appreciate you being here. It's so much fun to talk about the signs, talk about the archetypes. So these are the 3 decans of Capricorn. Each sign, of course, is 30 degrees, and then the signs are split into 3 element triplicities. This is within modern astrology. So from 0 to 10 degrees, this is the Capricorn degree. From 10 to 20 degrees, this is the Capricorn Taurus degree, or these are the Capricorn Taurus degrees. And from 20 to 30 degrees, these are the Capricorn Virgo degrees. So if you were born on the 25th of December, you would be that Capricorn. If you were born on the 5th of January, you would be the Capricorn Taurus. Or if you were born on the 13th of January, then you would have that Capricorn Virgo. But also keep in mind other planets. So for instance, let's say you have Venus in Capricorn at around 9 degrees. So you would be the Capricorn. Let's say you have Jupiter in Capricorn at 12 degrees. You would be part of that Capricorn Taurus decan. But then let's say you're someone like me who has Mars in Capricorn at 22 degrees. You'll be part of that Capricorn Virgo decan. More Virgo energy for me. Oh, great. It's just what I need. Anyway. Right, so let's get on to this part. I love these segments. This is perhaps one of my favorite parts of this. So, what does the sign of Capricorn teach us? If we wish to succeed at something, we must work hard at it. Oh my gosh, shocker. Shocker. Life can't just, come to us, things. We can't just succeed at things without doing anything, with no effort. Okay, I'll get serious again. Achievements don't just fall on our laps, okay? Things take time, and we got to show dedication. We all experience setbacks and delays, and we can all fall on hard times. Okay. This is a reality. This is a sad reality, but it's also about, okay, that's a reality and you can't really control it, right? We all fall on hard times. Life can be full of struggle. Life can be full of hardship. It can be full of disappointments. And I'm going to be completely honest, we're talking about, okay, Capricorn and rewards and success and stuff like this. There are some people in this world who experience tragedy after tragedy, loss after loss, failure after failure, and it's not necessarily their fault. That is the thing about this, right? And I just wanted to say that, I wanted to say that and acknowledge that yeah, life can be a real flippin' struggle for many people. Life can be full of stress, adversity, etc. And the other thing about this then is that Capricorn teaches us how we overcome adversity can shape us, okay? Can certainly shape us, but also possibly age us too. And we also mature. There are major lessons that can be learned basically from adversity in life. And taking responsibility for our actions shows maturity. Being able to maybe rectify a mistake or something that we did in the past, which is something I've talked about in previous videos, which it's interesting because whilst yes, real, in a realistic sense or practical sense, that the what we do today doesn't really impact the past, but then I was sort of thinking, what if it did? So, for example, something that you do today, so an action that you make today, perhaps it does have an impact on the past because maybe you were going to, let's just say, for example, you were going to pay, right? You were going to pay for something that you did in the past. But because you rectified whatever's happening in the present, or because you took a certain action in the present, that thing actually doesn't happen. But you don't see it though. You don't really see it. You don't see the results of it. But I just find that interesting. So yeah, karma, right? Karma. Often in life, you just need to get up and get on with it. This is Capricorn energy. My father, okay, my father had his Mercury in Capricorn, and that was one of his famous sayings. It was just like, get up and get on with it. I feel like that is a saying that's said largely within older generations as well. And yes, you could also look at this through a more challenging negative lens. It depends on the context, everything within context, folks. But I still think that this saying can be useful at times. Capricorn energy says, come on, I know it's a struggle right now, but try not feel sorry for yourself. Try not dwell for too long, okay? You're going to be okay. Get out there. These are the practical steps you have to take, okay? But yeah, I think that is the kind of adult part of us that kicks in and says, no, I still need to provide. I still need to get up and get on and attend to X, Y, and Z. Consistency and discipline together create results. Be pragmatic. It's great. And motivation alone is not enough. And this is something that I talked about in a Patreon video. So it was in a behind the scenes video to do with the difference between Mars and Saturn in the chart. Mars can look at motivation, okay? But Saturn can look at discipline. And motivation and discipline are very different. So, for instance, I'll use myself an example, okay? So, let's say I wanted to go to the gym 3 times a week. I was like, right, okay, this is my goal. I want to go to the gym 3 times a week. I want to lift weights 3 times a week. But then on certain days, I get up and I'm like, oh, I just don't have the motivation. I don't want to go. I can't be bothered. It's snowing outside. It's cold. Okay, there's no motivation. But discipline kicks in and it goes, No. Like, I don't care. I'm not motivated. No, I'm not motivated, of course, but I'm still going. Like, I'm still going because this was the plan. Like, this is what I disciplined myself to do. So yeah, there's often times in life when we're not motivated to do certain things. I'm going to be honest, even before this life, I was a little bit like, I don't know, I can't be bothered. It's like having my tea. Oh, I just want to rest for a little bit. It's like, no, Hannah, discipline, come into it. It's planned. We're going to do this. So this is Capricorn energy. And then lastly, just because something is a rule or a law doesn't mean it cannot be changed. And then it leads into Aquarius, which we're going to talk about Aquarius during Aquarius season. Thank you so much, Jocelyn. Thank you. Very, very kind of you. Okay, let's trying to read the comments. You said your dad is Capricorn. You've got a Capricorn rising. You get the idea. You're not sure if other people get the idea. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, let me just get my preparations. So let's now move on to the strengths of Capricorn. Capricorn is, of course, pragmatic, practical, and sensible, mature, determined, committed. Oh my gosh. You need a Capricorn on your team. That is for sure, folks. Excellent discipline, excellent self-control, and follow through. I also just want to say that Capricorn is big on respect, self-respect, earning respect, etc. And if you disrespect them, you don't want to do that. They also possess a deeply intuitive and spiritual side. They choose to make something of themselves. They provide practical advice and show up for others. Okay. I love that about how they show up for their friends, for their family, etc. Capricorn is central and down to earth. Very grounded people. Dry humor. And masters of sarcasm. Indeed. And they know their purpose and their position. They know their role very, very well. Moving on to the weaknesses of Capricorn. Of course, we all have certain weaknesses in life, don't we? Capricorn can be controlling and demanding. Controlling and demanding. They can come across as authoritative, and a funny story is running through my mind about my niece. I'm not going to share it, but it's on my mind about my niece. She has her son in Capricorn. It's funny to watch even placements play out within children. Another thing is Capricorn can become bitter. They can become resentful, and I feel as if this can particularly show up whenever there have been a lot of, setbacks and delays in their lives. They can also feel like they're not deserving of success. Where I would even argue that there can be some like self-sabotaging that can come into the equation, sort of similar to Scorpio, but I feel there's just something about lacking the ability to kind of go, hey, you know what, actually I am deserving of this, and I do want to be recognized for my excellence or for my hard work or my dedication. Capricorn can also make life harder than it needs to be. Like I said, I'm very heavy Capricorn, and I'm like this, okay? I am like this through and through, probably on a daily basis. I make life way harder than it needs to be. I make life harder for myself. It's a big flaw. Is it something I'm trying to work on? Yeah. Maybe not hard enough. Okay, Capricorn can also be overly rational whilst overlooking feelings. Okay, this can be that issue then for people who have moon in Capricorn, as I was previously explaining. Ruthless, power hungry, status seeking, right? There are Capricorns who can be like this. There are some figures in my mind, for example, certain elite figures, certain people in positions of power I'm kind of thinking about who can very much be like this. And then lastly, Capricorn can be very gloomy and depressive and negative and regretful. So, yeah, you could go to Capricorn and you're trying to maybe help them see the brighter side or positive side, maybe Sagittarius types, right? Approaching Capricorn. But Capricorn's just like, no, 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 not listening. Yeah. And then there's the regretful piece as well, where it's like, oh, I regret doing that. Oh, I constantly like looking back to the past. Capricorn can really look at like deep, deep feelings of sadness, right? Sadness and melancholy, right? Melancholy can strongly show up here. Okay. So we're going to move on to some journaling questions. Some journaling questions then to ask yourself: how do I overcome adversity and hardship in life? Are there any long-term goals I'm working towards? Do I put my work and successes ahead of my relationships? How have I matured coming into my adult years? When in life have I made something of myself? That should say made, not make. My apologies. Any achievements I'm glad I stuck at? What traditions do I follow, and how do they serve me in life? Okay, so those are just some journaling questions. Of course, the traditional side, like Capricorn can be big on creating traditions. So, where is Capricorn in your chart? Which house does Capricorn rule in your natal chart? Because this is going to show you the area of life where you build, where you preserve, where you commit, where you show dedication. You're going to move with caution. You're going to move with purpose. This is where you're going to focus on the long haul. You're going to show determination, hopefully be disciplined, look at hard work. Of course, we can overwork ourselves, right? There can be that part of Capricorn where there's the workaholic tendencies, which be cautious of that. And then, as I was kind of previously saying there with journaling, the journaling questions, often this can look at us really putting work in front of family, relationships, other areas in life that are important. And then, yeah, we can overwork ourselves, and we can also face setbacks. Now, this house is also going to be tied to status, career, purpose, and our life's work. It's also going to be a house that shows up as self-mastery, our expertise. Again, it's about respect. But here is the thing. You also need to look for the ruling planet of your Capricorn house for more information, and that is going to be Saturn. So here we see the 12 houses, and I'll just throw a couple out there, seeing as King Capricornio and then Manda, we'll do the second house and the 10th house then. So if you have Capricorn in the second house, of course, this can suggest that what you're really building upon in life would be your resources, would be your finances, looking at what you can build for the long haul, and possibly having that solid, steady foundation so that such such things can be passed on to others, possibly. Looking at the legacy that you want to leave behind in this way, it can also suggest that there is a great deal, or there is a great deal of setbacks and delays for you when it comes to your resources. But it's also about, okay, I want to maybe work hard here, or make money from being an authority, or make money from being a boss or a manager in some way. And I also feel as if Saturn or Capricorn in the second house is about self-worth, okay? This is about building upon your self-worth and really respecting yourself in this way. Now, if you have Capricorn in the 10th house, this can suggest that your life's work is very much something that you are continuously building toward and striving toward, and you want to be recognized for your life's work. Of course, there are other parts of this that come into it. You have to explore the whole chart, but I do feel as if this is about dedication. This is about really disciplining yourself and being recognized for what you offer, and for what you being respected for what you're known for, and possibly as well entering a career path where you are actually an authority or a boss or a manager in some way, shape, or form, or maybe a role where you have a lot of responsibility, right? There's a lot of responsibility that falls on your shoulders, and it's how you tackle that responsibility. And oh, I'm sorry, Jocelyn. I only just saw the 4th house. So usually I usually do three out of these just as examples. But because Jocelyn, I saw there with 4th house. So yes, 4th house would be I feel like with the 4th house energy, this one is a bit more, I would say, difficult in that there can be these restrictions and these limitations to do with feeling safe or nurtured. This can suggest like a barren feel, a cold feel to the family, to the home. But this is also about showing dedication. This is also about you maturing and being responsible when it comes to family, when it comes to setting up a home for yourself, thinking about the type of home that you live in later on in life. But then this is also about your core self with the 4th house, right? So how you can parent yourself, hopefully parenting yourself in a way where, it's more about creating this safe space, really being able to feel, because it can suggest here that certain feelings and emotions were quite blocked or limited, especially whenever you were younger. There's more I could say about these houses. And yeah, as I say, I typically try to just do 3 for examples, but as I say, there's so much more I could elaborate on, but just with time and keeping things moving. So any planets in Capricorn? What Capricorn planets do you have in your natal chart? Because this is going to show parts of your personality tied to the Capricorn traits. So the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and Rising are going to be more personal. Jupiter, Chiron, and Saturn is more social, more interpersonal. And then Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are more generational. And wherever Saturn is placed will tell you more information. Saturn is the dispositor of your Capricorn planets, so look for that in your chart, and also consider aspects to your Capricorn planets and the houses linked to those planets. And like I said, remember those decans being Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. So That's okay. Just give me a moment. Right. So if I go, sorry, I'm just trying to sort something. Okay, perfect. So this is the last sort of area that we're going to look at. So as I say, we're exploring these the Capricorn planets, but this is just a reminder of what the planets sort of represent. So then take the information about the archetype of Capricorn today, the certain qualities that we talked about, strengths, weaknesses, all the rest of it. Think about those things and then consider the planets and their functions, which we're going to run through really quickly, and then apply, okay? Apply this information and then see what you can figure out for yourself. So the sun, as a reminder, looks at vitality and purpose, ego as well. The moon looks at our emotions and our inner selves. Mercury points toward communication and our thought process. Venus points toward our values and our worth and our relationships. And then Mars looks to our drive, our motivation, and our willpower. So all those planets to the left, they are your personal planets. So then moving into the center, these are the social interpersonal planets. Now, the last time Jupiter was in Capricorn was from 2019 until 2020. And Jupiter then looks at exploration and our benevolence. And then the last time Saturn was in Capricorn was from 2017 until 2020. And of course, Saturn looks to maturity and success. And then the last time Chiron was in Capricorn was from 2001 until 2005. And Chiron looks to our wounds and our integration. But if we also turn our attention to the final section, we look to the generational planets. So the last time, if I just bring up this information so I can see it a little bit better for myself, the last time Uranus was in Capricorn was from 1988 until 1996. Uranus looks at innovation and social change. Now, the important thing about this one is in 1994, Amazon was created. Who by? Jeff Bezos. And his sun is in Capricorn. So, yes. And the thing about Uranus being Capricorn is it really did open up opportunities, I feel, to do with marketing online, okay, to do with selling products online, to do with creating businesses online. We've seen just how things have really boomed over the years. And in 1991, of course, Uranus was also in Capricorn at the time. We saw internet commercial usage and just in general, the booming new economy during the 1990s. But then if we also look here, the last time Neptune was in Capricorn was from 1984 until 1998. And there was a bit of a crossover there with both Uranus and Neptune being in Capricorn. I have both Uranus and Neptune in Capricorn. I'm part of that little small sort of sub-generation or that pool of people, if you will. And as a reminder, Neptune is about distortions and spirituality. So yeah, the 1990s there with both Neptune and Uranus being in Capricorn, looking to the booming new economy, and just think about how business changed in very innovative ways back then. But then also consider the amount of people, turning businesses or turning their turning their spiritual practices into businesses, okay? Think about the amount of tarot readers today, for instance, the amount of astrologers today as well. Perhaps that's also a Uranus thing though too. Indeed, we really did see these big shifts. But then lastly, the last time, Pluto is still in Capricorn right now at 29 degrees. And then it will enter Aquarius on the 20th of January. And there's still going to be a little bit of Pluto in Capricorn from September until November. But Pluto entered Capricorn in 2008. And of course, it stayed in Capricorn all the way up until 2023. And then Pluto entered Aquarius for a bit and then back and forth, etc. So at the beginning of this transit, there was, of course, the financial crisis, where, there was many threats to banking and housing, mortgages here. And also we're noticing here coming into 2023, a much slower economy. We are noticing even this in combination with Uranus being in Taurus and Jupiter being in Taurus, inflation, the cost of living. But Pluto also was in Capricorn during the time that lockdowns happened, and you've seen the ripple effect. You've seen the consequences of lockdowns happening, just the strains on the economy. And there's, of course, more I could talk about to do with Pluto in Capricorn, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of small themes or brief themes. But just a reminder, Pluto is very much about regeneration and power. Okay, so that is us, everyone. That is the presentation all about the archetype of Capricorn. Thank you so much for listening today. And if you're interested in booking a reading with me, you can do so by going to hannahselsewhere.com. And if you enjoyed this presentation, if you find it to be helpful, you can always buy me a coffee. The link is right there. And yeah, so that is us. And if you have anything else you want to share, say, it's all good. But if not, I'm going to get going. I hope you have a lovely rest to your day, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Let me know what you thought. And just a reminder that there is the Patreon as a way to support the channel. It would be much appreciated. And it has been a great session today. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Jocelyn. Thank you for commenting and for really speaking today and getting involved. It's been great to also speak with you in the chat today, everyone. I really enjoy it. I enjoy live streams. They're good fun. Okay, I am going to get going and I will talk to you all very, very soon. Bye.